Why would a landlord in California have to pay a tenant money if they're evicting the tenant? The answer depends on whether it's an at-fault or no-fault eviction. And if you stay to the end and watch this video, you'll have a much better understanding of the difference between the two and which one would require you to pay extra money to your tenant when you're evicting them. Evictions in California are broadly categorized as either at-fault or no-fault evictions, depending on the circumstances that led to the eviction being filed. At fault is kind of self-explanatory. It's the tenant at fault for violating the terms of the lease. So this could include not paying rent, conducting illegal activity, or making modifications that were not permitted on the lease. Generally speaking, in an at-fault eviction, a tenant is not going to be eligible for any kind of relocation assistance because they made their own bed. They're responsible for their own eviction, at fault. You can contrast this with a no-fault eviction, where the tenant, as the name implies, has no fault behind the termination of the tenancy. So common examples of no-fault terminations are when a landlord wants to substantially remodel the property, take the property off the rental market, or perhaps move in as an owner and occupy the property themselves. In these examples, the tenant is not responsible for the reason why the termination is occurring, and so the landlord would likely be responsible for relocation assistance in a not at fault or no fault eviction. Under California law, landlords are responsible for keeping their properties in a habitable state. If the property becomes uninhabitable because of the landlord's negligence, the landlord must abate rent. And in extreme cases, the tenant can be eligible for relocation assistance. You might also have to pay relocation assistance if the government is forcing you to evict a tenant. For instance, an unpermitted dwelling that needs to be knocked down, or an eminent domain action where the government's taking land for public use. A natural disaster can entitle a tenant to either abating the rent or terminating the lease without penalty. Understanding the difference between at-fault and no-fault evictions is crucial if you want to operate a property profitably and not have to shell out thousands of dollars in relocation fees because of a poor choice in eviction. Know the difference between at-fault and no-fault, and if you still need help, you need to consult an attorney.